We will start by taking a closer look at the German regional ecosystems and the benefits they can bring to businesses. I would like to welcome my colleague Sophie Vogt-Hohenlinde, who will moderate the discussion.
Thank you, Janine, and a very warm welcome also from my side to our panel on regional initiatives. In recent years, not only the federal government has become active in promoting quantum computing. Many states' initiatives have been created with the aim of boosting local industry and research in this field. Just last week, for example, a quantum alliance was launched here in Berlin. In this panel, we will take a closer look at those initiatives and their activities. How do their collective efforts contribute to Germany's status as a quantum computing hub? And how can they specifically support companies in their aim and their quantum computing strategies? This is what we will discuss within the next 40 minutes. My name is Sophie Vogt-Hohenlinde. I'm head of state policy and digital society at Bitkom, and I'm very much looking forward to moderate this session. With me on stage, please first welcome René Weißing, Deputy Head of the Coordination Office for Quantum Technologies of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia. Welcome, René.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is Pourmalek, Managing Director of the Quantum Valley of Lower Saxony. Very welcome. And last but not least, Benedikt-Mehmel, Project Manager of the Quantum Technology Initiative of the City of Hamburg, Hamburg Quantum Innovation Capital at the Artificial Intelligence Center, Hamburg. Very welcome. Great to have you here. Everyone made it, despite some train uncertainty.
Delay.
Yeah, but great you're here. So we have 3 states, we have 3 initiatives, and we're very much looking forward to look into your specific objections and your work in the regions. Let's start a bit more on a personal note. I would be interested, what brought you specifically to the area of quantum computing? What was your way into this specific field? And let's start with you, René. Please give us a short insight into your personal way.
Sure. Everybody can hear me? Perfect. So basically my background is I'm a chemist, material scientist, and when I started working, I was more driven towards digital technologies, digital twins, virtual prototyping, and I think it was fascinating to see how these constantly changing technologies also change possibilities. So when I was offered a position within our coordination office for quantum technologies, I was really thrilled, because there you can really experience how things which might have not been possible a few years ago suddenly become possible, how you really change the border, what is achievable every day, basically.
Great. So really the intersection between technology and policy also. And to you, Nas, what was your way into the field, and maybe also Lower Saxony?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Canada, and I kind of was used to throwing myself into new challenges. And when I moved to Germany, I decided to go into architecture and studied project management. And I'm an entrepreneur, so I founded my first firm when I was 28 and started managing big construction projects in Lower Saxony. And as I heard that Quantum Valley Lower Saxony was looking for somebody to manage this close-knit interdisciplinary community, I thought I was spoken to. So I applied, and now I'm managing this wonderful new initiative in quantum.
Great. We will shortly look into all of your initiatives a bit closer to understand what you're doing. But Benedikt, also the question to you: how did you end up at the Quantum Initiative in Hamburg?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me here. My personal background: I'm a theoretical physicist with a focus on condensed matter physics, and I was working in the field of density functional theory, and so I was most interested in thinking and calculating about electron density properties, material properties, and so forth. And we all know about it, that there are quite limitations on this, on precision, on how to scale to bigger applicable problems regarding new materials and stuff like that. And so I was really thrilled about the possibility to work within the field of quantum technology, especially regarding the topic of transfer, knowledge transfer, and technology transfer. And so I'm very glad to be part of the Hamburg Quantum Initiative.
Great, so we have a good mix of different backgrounds on the panel here. And now we start again in North Rhine-Westphalia and travel a bit, so to say, from west to east. And yeah, I would be interested in the objective of the Coordination Office for Quantum Technology. Maybe you can start by saying, yeah, what's your task, who's funding you? And I think that would be interesting to understand how those initiatives are set up within the government.
Sure. So we are a local initiative in NRW, and we are commissioned and financed by the Ministry of Economics. Actually, the coordination office is part of a bigger network, which is NMWP.
Yeah, I try to avoid this, this abbreviation.
Just let me briefly introduce it. So basically, we are a cluster for nano, micro, Werkstoffe, and photonic, which since 2019 is also responsible for quantum technologies. And yeah, we are a coordination office in North Rhine-Westphalia, and so to say the first contact point with everything regarding quantum technologies. And maybe give a little bit more insight in our objectives. I think what we are doing is a lot of PR work. We try to sensibilize for the topic quantum technologies. We share breakthroughs, we publish news, we have a newsletter where we contribute all the information towards our community, towards our network, towards our stakeholders. And of course, we constantly want to grow our network because it's quite important that you have like a big network and can match the right people at the right time with different needs. And this is so important because I think one of our major objectives is enhance technology transfer to a point that we have like a really great research facility environment in North Rhine-Westphalia. We have a lot of universities and research centers, and we want to try to bring these kind of excellent research ideas towards industrial. Yeah, this is basically what we are trying to do.
Thank you for the insight. Nas, the objectives and function of the Quantum Valley in Lower Saxony, are they comparable or do you have a different focus?
Very similar. We are an alliance between research and industry and politics. And the cooperation between the research institutes is actually decades old, so it's nothing new. They've, over the last 10 years, been managed to get over 220 million euros funding in research. What is new is in 2021, they tried to sharpen their focus on trapped ion computing, quantum computing. And so the QVLS was formed, and what we do is we try to bring together the research communities with the industry partners and also our politicians so that we have a good support system. What is interesting about our association, similar also to yours, we are non-for-profit, so inherently we are actually very interested in serving the community, and we are non-for-profit, so we are not profit-oriented. So the funding that we get, we really try to put back out into the community as much as we can.
Great. And Benedikt, lastly to you, the focus of Hamburg's initiative, does it also fall in this area?
It's quite similar. I think I can add some specialities about the metropolitan area of Hamburg. So, but first of all, so we are integrated in the Artificial Intelligence Center Hamburg, which is for the city of Hamburg doing ecosystem building regarding the topic of AI. And this is very special about us that we have already an existing network between research science and politics regarding the topic of AI. And within that we added with important stakeholders like Fraunhofer CML, which is also here today, and coming from science, or industry players like Eviden, NXP or Airbus, and important other research institutions like the University of Hamburg and so forth. We are very closely working together as a non-profit to foster and to enhance the transfer coming from research, as it is a quite research-based topic right now, towards applications. And that is very special in Hamburg that we are a city-state, so everything is really dense regarding science and industry. And we have a great transfer infrastructure here in Hamburg. Not here, but in Hamburg. And yeah, that's very special about us.
Great. You already mentioned the strength of Hamburg, and that's a question I would also like pass over to you. How do you draw on the unique strength of North Rhine-Westphalia or Lower Saxony as a more rural area also compared? Do you have any kind of strategy to work with the unique strength of the region? Feel free to start. Yeah.
Sure. So I was already mentioning that our research facility and also density of universities and all research facilities in general is really, really high. So we have a lot of expertise within these kind of sectors, and of course in NRW we have a quite robust industry, meaning that we have like a strong expertise basically along the value chain. When we are thinking that the end product is basically a quantum computer, I think we can also contribute on making this quantum computer a little bit better by bringing different expertise along the value chain together with really manufacturer of computers, quantum computers. And I think this is a strength of North Rhine-Westphalia, and it's also quite unique that basically we have already created kind of an ecosystem in North Rhine-Westphalia, which then can contribute to a bigger ecosystem in Germany or even in Europe. And I think this is really one important strength, that we can really foster collaboration between research industries with research institutions, with universities, and with industry.
Great. And now Lower Saxony has a bit of a different industrial structure, so maybe you could dive a bit into how you use those strengths in your work as a regional cluster.
Sure. Lower Saxony is more rural, but the industry partner that we have, partners that we have, for example, the Volkswagen Foundation, they are one of the biggest in Germany. So we're talking also to compare the financial strength of the companies. Lower Saxony is also very comparable. But we have also very, very strong research institutions. So the Leibniz University of Hanover is very strong in its research of semiconductor technologies and also quantum optics. The TU Braunschweig as well, Technical University of Braunschweig. And obviously we have a very strong partner, a national partner in our state of Lower Saxony, and that's the National Metrology Institute, the PTB. And they play also a big role in our research and our initiatives because they have a totally different perspective on the projects. They have a much more federal institution kind of overview. And we can just see how successful we've been since our founding in 2021. We've had over 57 projects, over 170 million euros have been flooding in. We've won 2 Alexander von Humboldt professors, which for the international community that doesn't know, it's one of the most highly endowed science awards that you can give to a scientist. So we are actually doing really well, even though we are more rural, but I think we can stand our ground.
Right.
Maybe I can add something, or I want to add something about the institutions in Hamburg. So what is very special about Hamburg is that we have a strong collaboration with DLR and the Innovation Center there in Hamburg. And so one platform is developed based on ionic trapped quantum computers. Then at the Center for Quantum Technologies in Hamburg, we've also neutral atom-based platforms which were developed. And to add there, something else is very special, that we have DESI, which is one of the biggest acceleration centers worldwide. And so we have a huge expertise coming from photon science. So regarding quantum materials, quantum sensing, quantum machine learning is very important here, and also quite a huge field of interest and research. And one point to make it more plastic for you, that so you can stand at the harbor in Hamburg, drive with the ferry next to Airbus, and 20 minutes later you're at the Technical University of Hamburg-Harburg, and 20 minutes later you're at the campus of DLR. And that is very special about us, that we have a very close possibility of a close community.
Great. I think we got a good overview of the respective strength of the different regions. Now, in the next part, I would like to dive a bit into the impact of your initiatives for companies, and especially for companies who want to work with quantum. So let's start again in North Rhine-Westphalia. You know the drill. So I would be interested in how would you describe the industrial impact from your initiative, especially maybe in bringing more SMEs into the game.
So I think there are two different approaches. So one I was already mentioning. I think we are in part of quantum enabling quite strong, and I was saying in the beginning that we do a lot of sensibilization for the topic. And sometimes there are companies who have like a high expertise in a certain topic, but don't know that they actually can contribute towards quantum technologies. And so this is something where we try to really motivate SMEs to get in touch with this topic and try to make an impact towards making quantum computing better every day. And the other point is, of course, if you're looking at possible uses, we have a strong chemical industry within North Rhine-Westphalia. So basically, the first use cases, we have the users. So I think it's also important to bring these kind of parties together to work regarding solutions on how to be quantum ready when we have reached the hardware readiness level.
Would you say that works well so far? Because cooperation between two different sectors is always a bit difficult.
I think for us it's working really well, because I was already mentioning we already had an existing network. We had already existing networking partners. And so I think in our case it works really, really well.
Great. And in Lower Saxony, maybe also I would be interested in the industrial impact on the whole like ecosystem you see, especially for companies, but also maybe more specifically, what questions do companies have when they come to you and to the Quantum Valley of Lower Saxony?
So to answer that, we have to kind of understand what companies, or how companies think. Companies are very profit-oriented. So when they come to us, they want to know how much profit they can make, how soon they can make that profit, and what we can hand over to them so that they can get rolling. That's the main question that they asked. And what we answer is that this is a cooperation. So there is no answer where we can tell you, here, you can do this and you will make profit. What we do is we provide the playground for the industry partners to come together with research institutions who inherently understand the technology. So if these two people, the companies who understand societal needs and what the society needs, and research institutions who understand the technology, when these two come together in a playground, then they can come up with ideas that would make profit. And that's what we tell our industrial partners. We are very lucky in being able to provide that playground also on a European level. We have the European Quantum Technologies Conference coming to Lower Saxony, to Hanover. We're bringing the European research side. The European Conference on Trapped Ions starts next week, and that's one of the things we organize. So we're all about providing this playground where the two can come together.
Great.
Can I add something on what the boss said? I think the most important term within this question is quantum readiness, and so it's not a very precise notion, and you have to be very precise what do you mean by quantum readiness, since I would disagree that quantum readiness has to take place when the hardware is ready. So quantum readiness is like a process-oriented term. You now have to be quantum ready, which means you have to start the road towards being possible to, so it's a quite difficult topic. So first you have to look at the education, short-term education part. So you have to do HR education for companies, then on the executive side, so they are capable of further thinking about the topic. And the next step, you may have to make it possible that they can do benchmarks and see, for my specific problem and area of interest, which technology is relevant. Are we talking about annealing? Are we talking about computing? Are we talking about sensing? Totally different time spans. And I would totally agree on the fact that Jülich recently published an interesting paper about how the landscape is regarding SME is looking like in the realm of quantum readiness, and suppliers are way more quantum ready than end users. And that's very interesting, since that you have to be very precise and clear talking to companies about that fact, and then you have to take the measures, and you have to, and that's what we are doing in Hamburg. We're trying to make potential analysis, so and proof of concepts and small use cases, so companies are able to set up the first idea of their strategic roadmap and to make benchmarking, which is quite difficult topic itself, so no standards are around here. If you try to look up D-Wave benchmarks against CPLEX or whatsoever, have fun looking it up. It's quite difficult, and I think we have to think in small steps and process orientated. That's what I want to add.
I totally agree with Benedikt.
Yep.
So one of the specific projects that QVLS is doing is QT.NMWP.NRW. And this is a European-wide project where we come up with standardized short-term education programs for industry. And QVLS is one of the players in this QT.NMWP.NRW project. Over the next 3 years, we'll have courses, short-term courses for the industry, so they can make informed decisions when they decide to get involved financially with quantum technologies.
Maybe just say, I completely agree. And when I was saying that that the companies need to be ready when the hardware part is ready, basically was referring to exactly the process Benedikt was describing, that you need them, or you need to educate them step by step what is possible now. You need to give them access to different platforms to get an idea of what is possible and what will be possible. But I was referring to is it's too late to start thinking about quantum computing, quantum technology when the technology is ready. You have to be ready when the technology is ready. That was basically what I was trying to say.
Great. And you already mentioned some of the challenges and barriers businesses face right now to think of something that may come in the future. As we also said, the profit orientation is something that makes sometimes maybe companies a bit more short-sighted on short-term profit. So what are challenges and barriers businesses face when they want to go into quantum computing and quantum technologies in general? Maybe some like experience from your initiatives would be interesting. Could start with you.
Yeah, sure. So I think getting access to some sort of quantum computing is one of the biggest challenges right now, at least what we experience, because I mean, you can use either quantum computing platforms, quantum inspired computing, you have digital annealing, you have a lot of different options, but you need to get access. And I think there we can really help to bring different stakeholders together and help companies to get access to these kind of platforms. I think this is one of the major goals.
And NAS, I suppose it's a very similar challenge for the companies in Lower Saxony.
Yeah, because we understand these companies and where they're coming from, we try to ease them into this process. So one of the projects that we are doing right now, and we're being funded by BMBF, is a QVLS iLabs. And this is a project, runs over 3 years. This is called iLabs because it's called integration labs. So we try to integrate industry partners into the research and to move over to the application, commercialized application. And how we support them is we support them actually financially. So we say, in the first phase, we support you. You only have to give, for example, 20%. In the second phase, 40%. And so they kind of increase their engagement and financial support. So they don't feel like they're going in all at once and they'll be losing everything. No, we're supporting them with this funding, and that's something interesting that I think we could implement.
And Benedikt, also to you.
Very similar, and I can add something I think everyone will agree on. The local initiatives are very responsible regarding how we are communicating about this topic. And I think it's very important to disentangle the hype and what is about practical quantum advantage, since we're talking about quantum advantage, which is basically very different from talking about practical quantum advantage. And you have, I'm not.
So why is it different? Sorry, from a
Since
beginner in quantum.
you have to look at realistic cases, doing realistic benchmarks, and not. So just talking about Grover, you need not Grover, a Shor's algorithm. You need basically around 10 to the power of 6 logical qubits to do this. This is not right now a practical quantum advantage. You have to look at the current situations we are facing, and I think it is very important to be specific and precise on this communicating. And I don't mean being pessimistic. I'm very optimistic, but I think it's important to be realistic. As Nas already mentioned, everyone is thinking about revenue, and you cannot convince someone who is thinking about revenue if you are not specific regarding the numbers. And that's very, very important within our daily work.
And like we discussed, I mean, if you're talking about easing this process, easing the commercial industrial partners into this, what better way to do it than to say we have research institutions who've been doing this for many, many decades, who aren't just buying into the hype, like you said, but what they offer is very technologically advanced and based on solid ground. So I think that's the best way to have cooperation between commercialized partners.
Great.
And can I? Sorry, it's an interesting topic, and I think it's very important to set up infrastructure like open campus concepts, like DLR is doing in Hamburg. Then meaning that research centers, for instance, in that case of DLR and startups and industries are coming together to work on specific topics, and you have to have this exchange all the time, as you both mentioned. I think creating those real infrastructures is key for a functioning network, of a network and the local initiatives.
Great. I think network is a good term. We want to look for the last part of the panel a bit more at the topic of federal versus regional, and also the knowledge sharing that might happen between the regions, because now we have 3 initiatives here, but maybe there are more out there. So maybe the first question to you, René, is there any kind of knowledge sharing body between the different quantum technologies initiatives in Germany?
Yeah, of course there is. We are in contact, however, I think due to Corona, or let's start different. I think this is a place to get together, and this is great. Meeting at a conference, meeting in person can really drive this spirit forwards. During Corona, we hadn't had the option to meet in person, and I think it was quite sad, to be honest. I think now we met in person after the pandemic, at least for me, the first time with you, and I think this can be a starting point to really foster or elaborate our collaboration. And as I already mentioned, I think none of us is thinking that a state alone can contribute to a certain, or of course we can contribute to a certain extent to the ecosystem in Germany, but together we are much, much stronger, and we should use this.
Great. And Nas, you already mentioned the EU. Do you also have some form of formalized international cooperation with neighboring states, for example?
We do. As part of the QT.NMWP.NRW project, there are many other projects that it's actually EU. We have projects on the EU level, on the federal level, and on the regional level. And if I were to describe how each of these work, and they're different from each other, I think for the regional projects, you get a much more diversification of the results that you get. So it's very diversified. You have a face to the partners. You can meet very easily with each other, discuss problems or solutions. On the federal initiatives, obviously, they're also very important. So you have to pick and choose the project to the funding so that it works best. But for the federal funding, obviously, those are very important for where you need standardized measurements of different things, on the research level, on the commercialization level. And I think if I were to describe it, on the federal initiatives, you have less of a face to the partners. So it's very distant. And one of the problems that we have with that is that you have to put in a lot of effort and money in order to organize and administrate this. And what nobody realizes is the amount of pressure that we're putting on people when we ask them to administrate this, when there's no funding extra for that on the federal initiatives. We don't have that on the regional initiatives because it's easy to just get to know, call up your partner, you know each other anyways, so that's much easier on the regional level. But both are important. We just have to kind of access the right project to the right funding.
Can I just add
Yeah.
something to this regional aspect? I think you can really tailor certain programs towards the need of your industry, towards the strength your region really has. And I think another point would be that you are a lot more agile in a way that you can, to a certain extent, also test things out, which then might be implemented in a national or European strategy.
And Benedikt, maybe the question to you, do you think right now the regional initiatives complement the federal strategy, or do you think there's not enough alignment into a holistic strategy for Germany as such?
So and so, I would say. So first of all, I think there's a huge chance for local initiatives and also for federal initiatives working with each other, meaning...
Is it happening already?
Yes, in Hamburg it's happening on a nearly daily basis since DLR with the Innovation Center are working there. And I can give a good example. So for us it's very beneficial since the national initiatives are the face for European partners, and so they do have good contact. And so they can connect us with international initiatives, and we have been together with DLR in the Quantum Delta, in the Netherlands, and their Quantum Delta initiative. And this is very beneficial since you can make local partnerships crossing borders, and that's very, very important. And on the other hand, as René said, the local initiatives do know how the local ecosystem is working, and you cannot try a top-down approach coming from the federal side and just say, okay, we have to do this and that project. The local initiatives have to communicate and to make this transfer process going on. And so I think there are a lot of good examples, not only in Hamburg, for sure, but I think we should strengthen this collaboration, make it more on a strategic level. We should really implement it more. I think that's very important.
That brings me already to my last question to the three of you. And for the last minutes, I would go a bit into the direction you already started, which would be policy recommendations. So from each of yours perspective, what specific form of support and collaboration would be most beneficial from the German government, could be both state or national, to foster a real German-wide quantum ecosystem?
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel free to start, thank you.
So we already heard the word, I think road mapping should be a keyword in this regard, because we have to identify our strength profile for each region. And I think each region can contribute to national strategy. But of course, we need to first understand all the expertise, all the strength we have at a state level. And therefore, a road mapping process should be ideal. Some states already started, some might not have published their results, but I think this should be the next step. And with all these competences and with all these strength profiles, you then should also develop a roadmap for Germany.
Would you agree, Naz?
I do. I would say there are very positive aspects, positive and negative aspects. I think we should really consider how diversified the technology is right now due to the regional activities. So where you look at Lower Saxony, it has its own strengths, and you look elsewhere, each region has its own strength. It's very important to keep it that way, I think. But also, I mean, if there were recommendations coming from Canada, I can actually compare very easily and see that there are a lot of strings attached here. So if we could remove some of those strings, as far as bureaucracy is concerned and administration, I think that would help our cause a lot, because we are in a very new stage and we want to bring as many people here as possible so that we can help it flourish. And if there are lots of strings tying us down, that doesn't really work.
Yeah, I think great. I think in both your points there are already some, let's say, recommendations we're in Berlin at least, so we can put also forward to the national level to not duplicate work to some extent, but streamline it and become more efficient and share knowledge at the same time and not work in silos. So Benedikt, to you maybe the last question as well. Any recommendations from your side how to foster a German-wide ecosystem, and anything you would wish from the German government in that regard?
A lot of stuff, I think. First of all, they do have to spend all the money they promised in the first hint. That would be great. More seriously speaking.
Well, money is important.
True. I know. I think it really depends on what topics we are talking about. Regarding for roadmaps, benchmark and standardization is very important. This should be a national topic. For instance, PTB is really a good working partner and working on the EU level, and the local initiatives should work more closely with the PTB regarding the standardization. Benchmarking that would be a typical example, and I want to add another very important example, since I cannot give an exhaustive answer, regarding the funding of SMEs. There's a huge problem from my point of view that all local initiatives try to spend their money for their local area, and quantum computing on national level is not really a point of, okay, everything can happen in Hamburg or everything can happen in Lower Saxony. And I think we really should carefully think about how the money coming also from local ecosystem is spread to the national level. This I want to add to the recommendations you both made, and this is very important also.
Like I said also, PTB is a very big partner, and they do actually help with their expertise form our initiative a lot. So already the work the PTB, the National Metrology Institute, is doing is enormous for our cause. Yeah.
Great. Anything you would like to add?
Maybe. So I think the DLR, we have like a manufacturer of quantum computing, which is basically, or has like a seat in Hamburg to this kind of initiative, and there is also collaboration going on with a company of Hamburg, with a company of Munich. So I think, it is to a certain extent already working, that we don't think too much on a state side, but contribute altogether to the ecosystem of Germany.
I totally agree, and I think that's a very good point. We have to strengthen this and
exactly.
to make it more closely, but I think there are very good approaches right now, and we have to really put it on a high, it's a very important topic to put it into the development of further strategies for Germany.
Great. I think that's a great ending point for our panel here. Thank you very much to all of our speakers and the insights into your regions. And I guess you will also be around to take questions from the participants after this panel. And we're sure all of your initiatives will play an important role to foster a German-wide strong quantum ecosystem. So many thanks. And now I hand over to Janine.